Dr. Emily Matthews stared at her computer screen in disbelief. The signal patterns dancing across her monitor were unlike anything she had ever seen before. It was 3 a.m. at the Ocean Research Institute in San Diego, and what had started as a routine analysis of deep-sea acoustic data had turned into something that would change human history forever. "This can't be right," she whispered, reaching for her coffee cup. The patterns were too regular, too precise to be natural ocean sounds. They weren't whale songs or underwater volcanic activity. They weren't even similar to any human-made sounds she had in the database. She picked up her phone and called her boss. "Director Harrison, I'm sorry to wake you, but you need to see this." James Harrison arrived at the Institute 40 minutes later, his gray hair messy and his tie crooked. He had been the director of the Institute for 20 years. But Emily had never seen him move so quickly when she showed him the data. "Play it again," he said, leaning forward in his chair. Emily pressed play. The sound that came through the speakers was like water flowing over crystal, but with a pattern that repeated every 12 seconds. Between each pattern were shorter bursts that seemed to follow mathematical rules. "It's a message," Harrison said quietly. "And it's not from Earth." The next 12 hours were a blur of activity. More scientists arrived at the Institute. Government officials in black suits showed up. People spoke in hushed voices and made phone calls in corners. Emily's discovery had set off a chain of events that would reach far beyond Earth's oceans. The message, they learned, came from a species called the Aurelians. They were an ocean-dwelling people from a planet 30 light-years from Earth. Their message was simple but desperate. Their oceans were dying. A strange sickness was killing their people. They had reached out to the Galactic Council, a group of advanced alien species that governed much of the known galaxy, but had received no help. Emily sat in the main conference room with Harrison and several government officials as they watched a holographic message from the Galactic Council. The alien speaker, a tall being with silvery skin, spoke in a cold, dismissive tone. "The Aurelian case has been reviewed and dismissed," the alien said. "Their technological development is insufficient to warrant Council intervention. They have not achieved faster than light travel. They have not established colonies beyond their home world. Their request for aid is denied. They're letting them die because they're not advanced enough." Emily's voice shook with anger. That's horrible." Harrison placed a calming hand on her shoulder, but his own face showed similar outrage. "The Council's rules are clear," one of the government officials said. "We're not supposed to interfere either. We're barely accepted by the galactic community ourselves." Emily stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. "Since when do we let rules stop us from saving lives? We're talking about an entire species, millions of thinking, feeling beings. They reached out to us. They trust us enough to ask for help." Dr. Matthews, another official, warned, interfering could have serious consequences for Earth. "And what are the consequences of doing nothing?" she countered. "What does it say about humanity if we turn our backs on them, just like the Council did?" The room fell silent. Emily walked to the window, looking out at the Pacific Ocean stretching to the horizon. Somewhere out there, across the stars, another ocean world was dying. Another ocean people were watching their children get sick, their elders fade away, their civilization crumbling. Harrison cleared his throat. Maybe there's a way to help without drawing attention. We have some of the best marine biologists and environmental scientists on Earth here. If we kept it quiet, it would be risky," one official said slowly, "but not impossible." Emily turned back to the room, hope rising in her chest. "We'll need a small team, people we can trust, and we'll need a way to get there without the Council knowing." Harrison nodded, a small smile forming on his face. "I might know some people who can help with that. Former NASA scientists who've been working on some unofficial projects." "This is crazy," one of the officials muttered. "If we get caught, if we don't try," Emily said firmly, "we're no better than the Council. Earth has faced its own environmental disasters. We've learned how to fight them. We can help them." The meeting lasted until dawn. By the time the sun rose over the Pacific, plans were being made, teams were being assembled, and humanity was about to prove that sometimes the most advanced civilization isn't the one with the fastest ships or the most colonies, but the one with the biggest heart. Emily looked at the signal patterns one more time before heading home to pack. The Aurelians had reached out across 30 light-years of space, hoping someone would answer. And humanity had decided to answer. "We're coming." The human ship dropped out of stealth mode as it approached Aurelia. Emily pressed her face against the viewport, taking in the sight of the alien world. Like Earth, it was mostly ocean, but its waters shimmered with a slight purple tint under its orange sun. "Beautiful," Dr. Thomas Walker whispered beside her. The microbiologist had been quiet for most of the 2-month journey, studying Aurelian biology files. Hard to believe something's killing it. Their small ship, disguised as a private research vessel, landed on one of the few small islands that dotted Aurelia's surface. The team quickly set up their base camp, designed to look like an abandoned structure if any council ships passed by. Lisa Parker, their translator, worked with her computer as the first group of Aurelians approached the camp. They moved gracefully on their leg-like tentacles, their blue-green skin glistening with moisture. Their large eyes blinked at the humans with what seemed like hope. "Welcome, Earth friends," the translation came through clearly. The lead Aurelian, who called himself Blue Song, gestured with 3 of his upper limbs. "We feared you would not come." Emily stepped forward. "We couldn't ignore your call for help. Can you show us what's happening to your oceans?" The next few hours were difficult. The Aurelians took them to an underwater observation dome, where they could see the devastation firsthand. Large patches of their once vibrant ocean were turning gray, and sick Aurelians floated in medical pools nearby. "It started in the deep trenches," Blue Song explained through Lisa's translator. "At first, we thought it was natural, but then we found this." The Aurelian led them to another dome. Inside was something that made Emily's blood run cold. A research facility, clearly not of Aurelian design, sat abandoned on the ocean floor. Thomas scanned the facility with their equipment. "This is advanced technology, way beyond Aurelian capabilities. And look at these markings. They match known Council species designs." "They built this here?" Emily asked, anger rising in her voice. "Without your knowledge?" Blue Song's skin darkened, a sign of sadness. "The Council considers us primitive. They do not need our permission. We think they were testing new technologies in our waters." Then something went wrong. Lisa worked with Blue Song to access the facility's old computer systems. What they found confirmed their worst fears. The facility had been used to develop biological weapons, taking advantage of Aurelia's unique ocean chemistry. An accident had released one of their experiments. "That's why they wouldn't help," Emily said, her fists clenched. "They're covering up their mistake." Thomas was already analyzing samples. "This isn't just a normal pathogen. It's engineered to evolve, to become stronger over time. If we don't stop it soon, it could spread beyond the oceans. It could destroy all life on Aurelia." Captain Michael Reynolds, their military liaison, spoke up from where he'd been quietly observing. "We need to be careful here. If the Council finds out we've discovered their secret—" "They won't," Emily said firmly. "We'll find a way to fix this without exposing them. The Aurelians' survival is what matters most." They worked through the night, setting up their equipment in a hidden underwater cave. The Aurelians helped them collect samples from different parts of the ocean. Each test revealed something new about the pathogen. "Look at this," Thomas called out, pointing to his microscope screen. "The structure is similar to something I've seen before in Earth's deep sea vents. Maybe that's why they chose to test here." Emily felt a spark of hope. If the pathogen was similar to something from Earth, maybe they could use that knowledge to fight it. She watched as young Aurelians swam past their cave, their movements already slower than they should be. "Blue Song," she asked, "how long do your doctors say we have?" The Aurelian's skin rippled with worry. At current rates of spread, our civilization has perhaps 3 Earth months before collapse begins. Lisa put a hand on Emily's shoulder. We'll figure this out. We have to. As the teen worked into the night, Emily thought about how the Council's arrogance had nearly condemned an entire species to death. But she also saw something beautiful. Humans and Aurelians working side by side, sharing knowledge, fighting together. We need to contact Earth, she told Harrison over their secure link. Tell them to send everything we know about deep-sea bacteria. And tell them to hurry. The orange sun set over Aurelia's purple oceans, and in their hidden cave, the human team worked on, racing against time to save a civilization that the galaxy had chosen to forget. Time was running out. Emily hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night for the past week. In their underwater lab, converted from an old Aurelian living pod, she and Thomas worked nonstop. The latest batch of samples showed something terrifying. The pathogen was changing faster than they had expected. Look at this, Thomas said, pointing to his screen. Dark spots were spreading across the map of Aurelia's oceans. It's not just killing anymore. It's growing stronger. Captain Michael Reynolds entered the lab, his face tight with worry. We've got another problem. 3 more Aurelian cities have reported sick children. The hospitals can't keep up. Emily rubbed her tired eyes. The small victories they'd had in the past week seemed tiny compared to the growing crisis. She looked through the lab's clear walls at the purple ocean outside. More gray patches appeared every day, like dying spots in a once beautiful painting. Dr. Matthews, Lisa Parker burst into the lab, almost dropping her translator device. The Council. They've sent a patrol ship to this sector. Everyone froze. Discovery would mean more than just trouble for the human team. It could mean the end of any hope for the Aurelians. How long do we have? Emily asked. Blue Song says their sensors detected about 6 hours away. Lisa replied. They're doing a routine check of this quadrant. Captain Reynolds immediately went into action. We need to hide our equipment. Anything with Earth markings has to be covered or moved. Thomas, back up all your data. Emily, what do you need to keep working? Emily looked at her experiments. The main culture samples and the testing equipment. Everything else we can hide. They worked quickly, moving their obvious Earth technology into underwater caves. The Aurelians helped, their normally graceful movements now slower from the sickness spreading through their population. Blue Song coordinated the effort, his skin pale from exhaustion. Just as they finished hiding the last pieces of equipment, Thomas called out from the lab. Emily, you need to see this. She rushed back, nearly bumping into the door in her hurry. On Thomas's screen, a simulation showed the pathogen's structure changing. It's not just getting stronger, he explained, his voice shaking. It's adapting to move through air. What does that mean? Captain Reynolds asked. It means, Emily said quietly, that soon it won't need the ocean to spread. It could kill all life on Aurelia, not just the ocean dwellers. The news hit everyone hard. Blue Song's translator crackled as he spoke. Our people have always lived in harmony with the ocean. We never thought it could become our doom. Emily looked at the crying Aurelian children in the medical pod next door. She thought about all the species in the galaxy that the Council had ignored, all the civilizations they had deemed too primitive to save. Anger rose in her chest, but with it came determination. Thomas, she said suddenly, what if we're thinking about this wrong? We've been trying to kill the pathogen, but what if we could change it instead? Thomas blinked. Change it? How? The Earth bacteria we found in deep-sea vents. They don't just survive. They transform harmful substances. What if we could modify them to transform this pathogen? Hope flickered across Blue Song's skin, making it shine briefly. Is such a thing possible? Emily was already pulling up data on her screen. We'd need to work fast. Very fast. But if we could get the bacteria to see the pathogen as food rather than as a threat. The patrol ship, Lisa reminded them nervously. Let them come, Emily said firmly. We'll hide what we have to. But we're not leaving. We're not giving up. They worked through the next hours in tense silence, pausing only when the patrol ship passed overhead. Emily held her breath as its sensors swept the area. But their preparations worked. The ship moved on, its crew never knowing they had nearly discovered one of the biggest secrets in the galaxy. As soon as the all-clear came, they were back at work. Thomas began modifying the Earth bacteria while Emily ran simulations. Captain Reynolds coordinated with their hidden ship, requesting more supplies from Earth. Lysa and Bluesong worked with other Aurelian scientists, gathering data from across their world. "You know," Thomas said quietly as they watched the first test run of their modified bacteria, "even if this works, the Council will probably never know what we did here." Emily smiled, watching an Aurelian child swim past their window, still healthy enough to play. "That's okay. We're not doing this for them. We're doing it because it's right." Outside, in the purple waters of Aurelia, the galaxy's forgotten people continued their daily lives, unaware that their survival now depended on microscopic bacteria from a distant blue planet, and the humans who refused to turn their backs on those in need. The Galactic Council chamber was enormous. Ambassador Rebecca Anderson felt tiny as she stood before the semicircle of alien representatives. The council members sat on tall platforms, looking down at her. Their faces showed different levels of anger and disapproval. "The humans have broken galactic law," the head counselor said. His silver skin gleamed under the bright lights. "You interfered with a developing civilization. You ignored our direct orders to stay away from Aurelia." Rebecca stood straight and proud. She had practiced for this moment. "We responded to a cry for help, something you chose to ignore." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Many council species had never heard a lesser race speak so boldly to them. On a screen behind Rebecca, images showed the human research team working with the Aurelians. "This is not about helping," another counselor said. His insect-like features clicked with irritation. "This is about order. Rules. The natural progression of species." Rebecca played her first card. She pressed a button on her datapad, and new images appeared on the screen. They showed the abandoned research facility on the ocean floor. "Let's talk about rules," she said clearly. "Let's talk about how a council research team tested biological weapons in Aurelian waters without their knowledge or permission." The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Some counselors stood up, their faces showing alarm. Others started shouting. The head counselor banged his gravity gavel for order. "These accusations are dangerous, Ambassador Anderson," he warned. "The truth often is," Rebecca replied. "We found your facility. We found your failed experiments. We found evidence that you created the pathogen that's killing the Aurelians." More shouting filled the chamber. Rebecca waited patiently. On Earth, Emily and her team were still working to save lives. This political fight was just as important as their scientific one. A large counselor with rocky skin spoke up. "Even if these accusations are true, it does not excuse Earth's interference. There will be consequences, sanctions, restrictions on human expansion." Rebecca smiled slightly. "Before you make threats, you should know that we've already shared our evidence with 12 other developing civilizations. If anything happens to Earth, they'll know why." The chamber fell silent. The head counselor's silver skin had turned a pale gray. "You dare blackmail the council?" "No," Rebecca said firmly. "We dare to stand up for what's right." The Aurelians reached out to the galaxy for help. Only Earth answered. "What does that say about your advanced civilization?" She pressed another button. New images appeared, showing sick Aurelian children being treated by human doctors. "While you sit in your towers making rules about who deserves to live and who deserves to die, we're down there saving lives." "The natural order," one counselor began. "There is nothing natural about letting children die when you have the power to help them." Rebecca's voice rang through the chamber. "Earth has faced its own disasters. We've made terrible mistakes, but we've learned that the measure of a civilization isn't its technology or its power. It's its compassion. The younger council members started whispering among themselves. Some nodded slightly at Rebecca's words. The head counselor noticed this and frowned. "What do you want, Ambassador?" he asked finally. "First, we want your guarantee that you'll leave the Aurelians and Earth alone. Second, we want reform. No more secret weapons testing. No more abandoning developing civilizations. Or," the head counselor's voice was cold, "or the truth comes out. All of it. To every species in the galaxy." Rebecca stood her ground. "Your choice." Hours of debate followed. Rebecca answered questions, defended Earth's actions, and refused to back down. Finally, the council called for a vote. Back on Earth, Director Harrison watched the proceedings through a secure feed. He sent an urgent message to Emily on Aurelia. "Keep working. Anderson is buying us time." In the council chamber, the vote tallies appeared in glowing numbers above the platforms. Rebecca held her breath. The younger council members had sided with Earth. The final count was close, but it was enough. The head counselor spoke formally. "The council acknowledges Earth's concerns. We will establish a committee to review our policies regarding developing civilizations, and we will take no action against Earth or Aurelia at this time." Rebecca nodded gracefully, hiding her relief. As she turned to leave the chamber, several younger council members raised their hands in respect. She had shown them a different way, a human way, of facing the galaxy's problems. In her ear, her communicator crackled. It was a message from Emily. "Treatment showing positive results. Tell them they can't stop us now. We're going to save them all." Rebecca smiled as she walked out of the council chamber. Sometimes the biggest victories didn't come from weapons or technology, but from simply having the courage to do what was right. Dr. Andrew Miller hadn't slept in 2 days. The virologist's eyes were red as he stared into his microscope in the underwater lab. Next to him, Emily watched anxiously as he adjusted the focus. "There," Andrew suddenly shouted, making everyone jump. "Look at this. The deep-sea bacteria. It's not just fighting the pathogen. It's changing it." Emily rushed to look through the microscope. Under the powerful lens, she could see the Earth bacteria surrounding the alien pathogen. But instead of destroying it, they were transforming it into something harmless. "It's like watching a recycling plant at work," Thomas said, looking at the magnified images on his screen. "The bacteria are breaking down the pathogen and turning it into nutrients." Blue Saw moved closer, his skin rippling with hope. "And this will not harm our ocean life." "No," Andrew explained, pointing to another screen. "These bacteria are like tiny doctors. They only target the bad stuff. Everything else stays safe." Lisa Parker translated this for the other Aurelians in the lab. Their skin colors brightened, the first time Emily had seen them show joy in weeks. But Captain Reynolds looked worried. "How do we make enough of this treatment for an entire ocean?" Emily had been thinking about this problem. "We need to use the Aurelians' own technology. Their water filtration systems reach every major city, if we can modify them." "That would break about 10 different council rules," Thomas pointed out. "The council already knows we're here," Emily replied. "And Ambassador Anderson bought us some protection. We need to move fast." They worked through the night, teaching the Aurelians how to grow the Earth bacteria in their own labs. Every available tank was filled with the growing culture. The Aurelians learned quickly, their natural understanding of ocean life helping them grasp the concepts. "Look at this," Andrew called out the next morning. He showed them new test results. The bacteria aren't just surviving in Aurelian waters. They're thriving. They're adapting even better than we hoped. Emily sent the data to Director Harrison back on Earth. His response came quickly. "Production facilities are ready. We're sending everything we can." But they hit a problem. One of the younger Aurelians rushed into the lab, his skin dark with fear. Through Lisa's translator, they learned that the pathogen had reached the largest Aurelian city. Thousands were sick. "We need more time," Andrew said, looking at their supplies. We don't have enough bacteria grown yet. Emily looked at the scared faces around her, human and Aurelian. Then she remembered something from her early days studying Earth's oceans. What if we don't need to treat all the water at once? She said slowly. What if we create safe zones first? Like when we clean up ocean pollution on Earth. Thomas caught on quickly. We could start with the population centers. Create protected areas while the bacteria grow. The filtration systems, Blue Song said through the translator. We could adjust them to create barriers. Keep the sick water out while we clean what's inside. They put the plan into action. Aurelian engineers worked alongside the humans, modifying their city's water systems. Earth ships, disguised as cargo vessels, delivered more supplies. Every available tank and pool was used to grow the healing bacteria. Andrew worked with other Aurelian scientists, teaching them how to test water samples. Once the bacteria establish themselves, he explained, they'll multiply on their own. The ocean will heal itself. Emily watched from an observation dome as the first treatment was released into the water around the city. The clear bacteria culture spread out like a glowing cloud. Through their instruments, they could see it beginning to work. First zone is showing positive results, Thomas reported after 12 hours. Pathogen levels dropping. No harmful effects on local life. The Aurelians in the room began making musical sounds, their way of celebrating. Even those who were sick seemed to gain strength from the news. We need to spread this to other cities, Captain Reynolds said. How long until we have enough? Emily checked their production numbers. 3 days for the next major city, a week for all major population centers. Then we can start on the open ocean. Blue Song touched the window with 3 of his tentacles. Outside, they could see young Aurelians swimming more strongly than they had in weeks. You did not just bring us medicine, he said through Lisa's translator. You brought us hope. You showed us that friendship can come from unexpected places. Emily smiled, thinking of all the barriers they had broken, not just scientific ones, but barriers between species, between worlds. Sometimes, she said, the best discoveries come from helping others. As they watched, the treated water gradually began to clear, its natural purple color returning. It was a small victory, but an important one. The galaxy might have turned its back on Aurelia, but Earth had shown that there was another way, a way of compassion, cooperation, and hope. Major Rachel Cooper stood on the bridge of her ship, watching as more vessels appeared out of hyperspace. Each one carried tanks of the healing bacteria. The sight of 30 Earth ships openly breaking Council rules made her both proud and nervous. Status report, she called out to her crew. All ships in position, Major, her first officer replied. Treatment supplies ready for delivery. Aurelian cities are standing by. Rachel remembered the emergency meeting that had led to this moment. Earth's governments had united in a way she had never seen before. When they learned that more supplies were needed to save Aurelia, there had been no debate. Everyone helped. Her communication screen lit up. Major Cooper, this is Council enforcement. You are violating restricted space. Turn back immediately. Rachel smiled. They had expected this. This is Major Cooper. We are delivering humanitarian aid. We will not turn back. More Council ships appeared on her screens. They were bigger and more advanced than Earth's ships. But Rachel wasn't worried. She had seen the videos of recovering Aurelian children. No threat would make her abandon them now. Her second screen lit up. A young alien face appeared, one of the newer spacefaring races. Major Cooper, this is Captain Talara of the Ventari fleet. We stand with Earth. The Council does not speak for all of us anymore. More messages came in. Other young species, inspired by Earth's actions, were sending ships. They too had grown tired of the Council's cold rules. Back on Aurelia, Emily and her team watched the space drama unfold on their screens. Blue Song's skin glowed with emotion as he saw how many had come to help his people. Dr. Matthews, Captain Reynolds called out, "You need to see this." The team gathered around a larger screen. All across Aurelia, The treatment was working faster than they had hoped. The modified Earth bacteria had adapted perfectly to Aurelian waters. Whole cities were reporting recovery cases. "The Council can't stop this now," Thomas said, checking the latest readings. "The treatment is self-sustaining. The ocean is healing itself." Above them, the standoff continued. Council ships surrounded the Earth fleet, but they didn't fire. They couldn't. Not with so many young species watching. Not with the truth about their secret facility now known. Rachel received a new message. It was from Ambassador Anderson at the Council chamber. "Keep going, Major. They're backing down." The younger races are calling for a complete reform of Council policies. Emily's team had more good news. "The recovery rate is spreading beyond the cities," Andrew reported. "The bacteria are multiplying naturally, just as we hoped. They're breaking down the pathogen everywhere they find it." Lisa worked with Blue Song to share the news with all Aurelian cities. The musical sounds of their celebration echoed through the underwater corridors. "Look," Thomas pointed to their long-range scanners. More ships were arriving, but not Council ships. These were from other worlds that Earth had helped before, species who had faced their own disasters. They came carrying supplies, offering help. Rachel watched as the Council ships slowly backed away. They couldn't fight against this, not against the unity of so many species standing together. "Begin distribution," she ordered. Her ships moved forward, protected by their new allies. Teams started delivering the treatment supplies to every Aurelian city. In the underwater lab, Emily watched an Aurelian family swim by. The children were playing again, their movements strong and healthy. The parents' skin glowed with joy. Just weeks ago, they had been close to death. "The Council was wrong," Blue Song said through Lisa's translator. "They thought advancement meant technology and power. You showed us it means having the courage to help others." Captain Reynolds got an update from Earth. More supplies were coming. Other species were offering their own medical knowledge. The galaxy was changing. "You know what this means?" Thomas asked, looking at the data showing the ocean's recovery. "Any species that needs help in the future, they won't have to face it alone anymore." Emily nodded. She thought about how it had started, with a simple distress signal, with humans who refused to ignore a cry for help. Now it had grown into something bigger, a movement of species standing together, helping each other. "Major Cooper," she called over the comlink. "How are things up there?" Rachel's voice came back strong and clear. "The stars are full of friends today, Dr. Matthews. Turns out we're not the only ones who believe in doing what's right. In the purple oceans below and the black space above, a new way of thinking was spreading across the galaxy. The Council's cold rules were giving way to something warmer, something more human. The simple idea that no one should face disaster alone." 1 year later, Emily stood in the grand hall of the newly built Human Aurelian Marine Institute. The building sat both above and below the ocean's surface, a perfect blend of human and Aurelian architecture. Through the massive windows, she could see the healthy purple waters teeming with life. "Professor Matthews," a young Aurelian student called out, their translator making the words clear. "Will you tell us again about the great healing?" Emily smiled. She now taught regular classes to both human and Aurelian students. The story of Earth's help had become legend among the younger Aurelians. "Better yet," she said, "let me show you." She pulled up the old videos on the classroom's large screen. There were shots of the sick oceans, the human scientists working day and night, the fleet of ships bringing help. The students watched with wide eyes, both the human eyes and the large Aurelian ones. "Today's lesson is about more than science," Emily explained. "It's about doing what's right, even when others say you can't." In another part of the institute, Thomas and Andrew worked with Aurelian scientists in the new research labs. They were studying how the Earth bacteria had adapted to Aurelian waters, hoping to learn more about both worlds. Blue Song, now the head of Aurelian Human Relations, entered the classroom. His skin glowed with health and happiness. "Tell them what happened after," he suggested through his personal translator. Emily nodded. The aftermath of the crisis had changed the galaxy forever. The Galactic Council had been forced to create new rules about helping developing civilizations. The younger spacefaring races had gained more voice in galactic affairs. And most importantly, a network of mutual aid had formed between species. Last week, she told her students, the Ventari needed help with a planetary storm. Who remembers which species went to help them? Hands and tentacles rose. Earth ships, said one student. And Aurelian weather experts, said another. And the Proxima engineers. That's right, Emily said proudly. Because now we all know that we're stronger when we help each other. Director Harrison, visiting from Earth, watched from the doorway. He remembered how it had started, with a strange signal and a brave choice. Now the Institute was just one of many cooperative projects between species. After class, Emily walked with him through the underwater corridors. They passed human families who had moved to Aurelia to study and work. They saw Aurelian children teaching human children their swimming techniques. The council representatives are coming next week, Harrison said. They want to study how the cooperation between species works so well here. Emily laughed. Maybe they'll finally learn that the most advanced technology isn't always the answer. They reached the memorial hall. On the walls were pictures of everyone who had helped during the crisis. There was Ambassador Anderson standing proud in the council chamber, Major Cooper and her fleet bringing supplies, the scientists working endless hours in the labs. Did you see the latest numbers? Harrison asked. 20 more species have joined the emergency response network. Even some of the older council races are starting to help. Through the windows, they watched a group of human and Aurelian researchers heading out on a joint expedition. Their ship, designed by both species, moved smoothly through the purple waters. You know what makes me proudest? Emily said softly. The children don't see anything strange about all this. To them, helping each other is just natural. In orbit above them, Earth ships and Aurelian vessels patrolled together, protecting their shared world. The old council facility had been turned into a museum, a reminder of what happened when advanced civilizations forgot about compassion. As the orange sun set over the purple ocean, Emily prepared for her evening class. This one was for adult Aurelians and humans, teaching them about the similarities between their world's oceans. But she knew the real lesson was always the same, the one Earth had taught the galaxy. Professor Matthews, a small Aurelian child, stopped her in the hallway. My parent says you're a hero. Emily knelt down to the child's level. The real heroes are all of us together. Earth, Aurelia, and every species that learned to stand by each other. That's the greatest discovery we ever made. Outside, in the healthy oceans of Aurelia, life flourished. The galaxy had changed, not through war or advanced technology, but through something much simpler and much more powerful, the willingness to help those in need, no matter who or what they were. The Earth bacteria still lived in Aurelia's oceans, now a permanent part of its ecosystem. Like the friendship between humans and Aurelians, it had adapted, grown, and made both worlds stronger. This was humanity's legacy to the galaxy, not the power of their weapons or the strength of their ships, but the simple, unshakable belief that no one should face darkness alone.